The Old Road, date March 10th, 1818. I've spent years walking the roads of this fractured nation, searching for purpose after the defeat at Waterloo, and still I find myself drifting like so many of us, soldiers left behind in a world that has no need for us anymore. Perhaps that's why I took this journey across France. With nothing but a rucksack and my musket, I was determined to see more than the battlefield, to find something, anything worth living for again. Today, I stopped in a village just north of the Ardèche region, a quiet place forgotten by time and war. The innkeeper was a grim fellow, a man named Baptiste, whose face looked as though it had been carved from the same old stones that formed the hearth. I mentioned my plan to take the road that cuts through the forested hills. His hand stopped me there halfway to his cup of wine. "You would be wise to avoid the old road, monsieur," he said, his voice low, as though the walls themselves might hear him. I scoffed, of course. I've seen my share of death, the kind that breaks men, that leaves cities in ruins. Ghost stories don't frighten me. The war was taking care of that. It's an ancient path, Baptiste continued, leaning in. Older than the Romans, older than any of us. It's said to be cursed, a place where men enter and never return. No one who takes it emerges on the other side. No one sane, at least. Cursed, I laughed, not to mock the man, but the absurdity of it all. If no one returns, then who's left to tell these tales? I asked, feeling smacked in my logic. He didn't answer, but crossed himself and returned to his tasks. The villagers stared as I left the inn, but none spoke. There was a chill in their silence, a sense of something left unsaid. That old road was supposed to be a shortcut to the next village. Even as I write this, I wonder why I was so stubborn, why I thought it necessary to prove them wrong. But then, what else could a man like me do? We, soldiers, were bred on reason, trained to see the world in terms of strategy and certainty. War has no time for superstition. Date March 11th, 1818. I reached the old road by noon. It was as desolate as Baptiste had warned, a narrow path winding through thick forest. The trees grew close together, their gnarled branches forming a canopy that blotted out the sun. At first, there was nothing unusual about it. It was no more than a forgotten trail, covered in moss and shadow. The air was cold, though, colder than it should have been this time of year. Still, I pressed on. Hours passed and something gnawed at me. The path seemed longer than it should have been. My sense of time began to warp, the sun hanging far too low in the sky for how short the distance should be. I told myself it was fatigue, that the winding trail was simply confusing my sense of direction. But there was something else, something I can't quite explain. The forest seemed too still, too quiet. No birds, no rustling of animals, only the wind, faint and distant, as if it were coming from far away, from somewhere beyond the trees. By the time night fell, I could feel the unease creeping into my bones. I should have turned back, but stubbornness is a powerful thing. I made camp by the side of the road, convincing myself that in the morning everything would seem normal again. Date March 12th, 1818. It didn't. In fact, nothing seemed right when I woke. The road stretched on in both directions, and for a moment I was certain I hadn't moved at all. I walked for hours, pushing forward, certain I would reach the next village. But the trees remained the same. The shadows seemed to lengthen, creeping across the road in unnatural patterns. By midday I saw something, an ancient stone marker covered in moss, barely visible beneath the undergrowth. Its markings were not Roman nor anything I recognized. They were twisted, strange, like the script of an alien hand. I knelt, inspected, and noticed a faint hum, almost imperceptible, coming from the ground beneath me. It was as if the earth itself was vibrating, singing some eerie, incomprehensible song. I'm a man of logic, of reason. I fought Napoleon's war and survived, and yet, standing there, I felt a creeping terror clawing at my mind, something ancient and unseen watching me. Date March 13th, 1818. I walked all day again, but the road, this damn road, never ends. It loops. I'm sure of it now. No matter how far I go, I find myself back in the same place, passing the same stone markers, the same twisted trees. The sun never rises fully here, caught in an eternal dusk. I began to wonder, could this be the reason no one speaks of this road anymore? Not because they disappeared, but because they became part of it. The old road doesn't just trap you, it twists your mind. Baptiste warned me, but not even his grim tone could have prepared me for this. How could anyone? And now I think I understand why it appears only to a few. It does not exist on any map, nor in the world we know. This is not a road through France, but a road through time, through dimensions, an ancient passage created long before men walked this earth, perhaps even before earth existed. Perhaps the road allows itself to be found only when the stars are aligned or when the fabric of our reality thins. Date March 14th, 1818. I've stopped walking. It's no use. The road is endless because it doesn't lead anywhere we can comprehend. I know now that I'm lost, not in the forest, but in something far beyond my understanding. The road does not exist for men like me, men of logic, reason, and war. It exists for them, for whatever ancient things once traveled it before us, and now wait for their return. The whispers have started, faint at first, like the wind, but now growing stronger. I can hear them in the ground, in the trees, in the very air around me. They are calling me, urging me to continue walking, to follow the road until I reach whatever it is they want me to see. I'm afraid, truly afraid, that if I walk far enough, I will find the end. I think now that this road never disappears, never hides. It's always there, waiting for those foolish enough to seek it. The reason no one finds it is because those who do never return to tell their tale. Or perhaps, once you walk it, you can never leave. I can hear them now, closer. I don't know if they're coming for me or if I am simply losing my mind. Either way, I will not walk any farther. If anyone ever finds this journal, do not follow the old road. Not ever. Let it remain forgotten. I see now that it was never meant for us.